got about 15 minutes left here. I want to show you some of the related stories options here. This is a new feature. We released this in July, and I'm going to show you on a demo site, Yankton Daily Press, how this works. Okay, so let's take a look at an article from the, what's a good category? I don't know why that says new title. I don't really want to use the new title category. Let's do the obits. So if I click on this story from the obits category, we've got here a bunch of other articles from, okay, so here's the thing. Here's how the related stories works. We always had it so that you could have multiple, other stories from the same category that the current story is on. So I come to one article, I can see other articles that are in the same category. But before this new release, we could only do one category at a time. So it would only show the most prominent category, other stories that are shared, in that category. But what we can do now is have multiple categories, because this story is in both the obits and in more news. So now when you're looking at this article, the idea here is we want to keep people on the site longer. We want to show them other stories that they might be interested in. So if they're looking at an obit category, or if they're looking at a news article, then they might be interested in other stories from obits or news. So that's the whole reasoning behind it. But what I learned this weekend when I was kind of preparing for this is that there's a bunch of really cool options that I'm going to show you for how you can display those related stories. So let's go down, and this is another option that is only accessible to our ops team and the support team. So if you want to change these settings right now, you'd have to email ops to do it. But we're going to change it so that they will be accessible in the next probably few weeks. But here it is. This is basically the related article settings section. So look at this. The first one is, and I'm just going to play with these features, and then we're going to look at an article and see how it affects it. So the first one is include all categories for related stories. So let's go back to Yankton homepage. And, I didn't really, that other story probably wasn't the best example. I think this one is slightly better. Yeah, I like this one better. So this is a story about a play. It's in multiple categories: arts and entertainment, and featured, and news. It's in 3 different categories. So because I have this checkbox checked, I have 3 different categories of stories displayed at the bottom of the article. All 3 categories that that this article is in. Now, if I uncheck that and save changes, let's take a look at what is going to happen. Look at that. Now it's just got the 1. So it's just the top category, the most prominent category that it is featured in, that is going to display now. Okay. So let's check that back on, just because to really demonstrate this feature, we really need to have multiple categories. So there they are again, all 3 different categories. So, I just think this is great because you can really provide a lot of content. There's a lot more opportunities for a reader to click on another story and stay on the website rather than just bouncing and going elsewhere. So now that we've got our multiple categories in there, let's play around with these other settings. When multi-category is enabled, the values below apply to each category. Number of articles per row. The default for this is 3. Okay, and then we've also got total number of related articles. So this would be per category. So you can basically, as we'll see, this is kind of set up in a kind of uneven way. Let's change that to 8. So then I'm going to have 4 articles per row. Actually, let's just make it simple. Let's just make 3 and then 6, because those are closer to the default. So we've got 3 articles per row max, but then we can have up to 6 articles in each related category. Okay, so let's save that and see how that actually looks. So again, before we had 4 in this section. We basically had up to 4 in each row, and then a maximum of 7 in each category. So you basically have 7, up to 7 in this block. But if I reload this, we're going to have 3 and 3 right there. You see that? So 3 on the top row, 3 on the second row, 6 total in this category. And if you run out of stories, this is kind of what happens. So you will have some empty spaces. I mean, that's not going to happen on non-demo sites because it'll just keep going back into the archives until it finds a story in that category, okay? But this one, look at this. This really only has 3 stories, so it only has 1 row. Okay, now let's change these settings a little bit. So what if I did, we've got maximum, let's do 5. Total number of related stories per category. Set that to 5 rather than 6. What's going to happen is that this section is going to look a little bit better, I'm expecting, because it's not going to have that white space. Oh, wait. Okay, so that actually, no, that's what I realized last time is we've got to go above the 3. So let me make a correction here. Let's set this to 4 and then set this to 7. This is how we're going to fill in those white spaces because the minimum is 3. And so if we go above 3, then we're going to be able to fill in some of these spaces a little bit better, okay? So again, if you don't have enough articles, it's still going to run out. But in this case, we can have 3. 3 is all that we have in this category, so that's all that we can display. But on this one, this is probably the best example. We've got plenty of articles in the news category, so it's going to fill it up. And what it has done is set the top row to 4, and then the second one to 3, because we've set the max at 7. If I go up to 8 now, this is kind of fun to play with because you can really get it looking exactly the way you want. Now we've got 8, 4 in each row for the news category. Okay. And then this other option here, minimum articles to show a category. That's interesting. So that would take care of these kinds of problems. So let's say that I have a maximum number of 8 articles per category and 4 per row. I'm going to set this to a minimum of 4. And we're going to see what that looks like. Now, so let me just make sure that's 4 per category, right? So if I reload this now, what I'm going to expect is that this first category is going to not display because it's only got these 3 stories. Let's just see if that happens. Okay, that's exactly what happened. So there's now no arts and entertainment because it only had 3 stories. And I'm saying I need to have at least 4 to display it at all. And then these are going to look exactly the same because they have the minimum. So there's no change there. Okay, so those are the kinds of constraints that you have to deal with and that you can set on this. Those are the things that we came up with, basically what we thought made sense and kind of gave you the options that you would need, that we thought you would need. But if there's any room for improvement here, we're open to it. This is still a relatively new feature. So if there's some other variable that you would like to be able to set within this feature, let us know. We're really interested in feedback. But I think the way it is right now, it gives you a sufficient level of customization so that you can make it look the way you want and make it be as populated as you want, basically. What do you think, Vera? Does that all make sense?
It does. It does. And it actually presents customization, to make it look the way that the papers want it to.
Right, right. Yeah, that was the thing. When I first discovered it, I thought, it's nice, but what if I want to display more than 3 stories? And so the bottom line is that this new feature allows you to display multiple related categories and customize how each of those categories displays the related stories. So it gives you really quite a bit of control for something that is completely automated, and that's always the trick with websites, because whenever you make a change or create a new feature, you got to realize that it's got to work under any condition, no matter how many stories are available. In this case, it's got to look good. So that's kind of the reasoning behind those different variables. So that's a cool feature. I hope everyone knows about that, because really the name of the game these days is to keep people on site as long as possible, keep them clicking on other articles. Part of that is to give more benefit and more exposure to your advertisers. But I think for me as a subscriber, I subscribe to several online publications, and for me to let those subscriptions renew every month or every year, however frequently it is, I want to feel like I got a lot of value out of it. And so the more that I use the website, the more articles that I see, the more I feel like I got the value out of it. And so something like this is going to allow, a person to just follow their curiosity, to go through the site. And it's a pretty, I think, intelligent, logical way of, presenting stories that they're likely to be interested in, because it's all based on what they are looking at right now. So no matter how they got to this article, if they came from Facebook, they came from the newsletter, we want to keep them on the website and keep them clicking. And going back into the archives, that's one of the biggest resources that a newspaper has is its archives. And this is going to allow the current news traffic to bleed back into the archives through the related stories section. Okay. So
I have a question before we move on, if that's all right.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, it relates to the paywall structures. I know that there's a lot of people that have like teasers, maybe one or so many articles that are free.
Right.
Now, if you click on one of those articles, this would be perfect because, they might have exceeded their max amount of articles. That'll get them to register or subscribe.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Every new article that they click on will count against that meter. So you're right. If we can get them, to click on 2 stories each week, and the meter only gives away 4 stories a month, then halfway through the month, they're going to need to subscribe to keep getting more. So, that really is the idea. We want to get people using the site as much as possible. And if they really want to read that story, then they will subscribe. And especially if your paper has some type of a paywall model that has a nice low start point, something like $5 per month, that's a really easy way to get your foot in the door. Rather than asking them to subscribe for a whole year, let's just ask them to subscribe for a month at a time and have it auto renew. And if they're a person that's using up their meter every month, but they want to keep reading, eventually they will convert to a paid subscriber. And then it goes back to the idea of reinforcing the value of that subscription, encouraging them to use it as much as possible so that when it comes time to renew, they're just like, oh yeah, I read that website multiple times a week. That's a no-brainer. I'll just let it renew. There's never a question there. I think that's the key. It's so expensive. It's tough to even calculate how much it costs to generate a digital subscriber. It's all the marketing. There's so many factors in here. So once we get a subscriber, we've got to do everything we can to keep them as a subscriber. We got to keep them happy so that we can keep building our subscriber base. We don't want people starting and then leaving. Even if we maintain a steady level of subscribers by replacing the old ones with the new ones, you're chasing your tail at that point. We want to have steady growth and be building those numbers every single month.